Great, thank you.
All right, good evening. Welcome to the August 9th Newmarket Planning Board meeting. We'll start by saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First on the agenda is public comments. Anybody out there like to comment? Hearing none, I'll close the public comment at 7:02. Next is review and approval of the July 12th minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Motion's made and seconded.
Patrick.
Any discussion?
Changes. Page 4, line 11. That motion included an addition to the town planner's precedent conditions. So the fifth one would be confirmation of all easements for work outside the fenced area as shown on sheet A1 have been obtained and recorded. You're on line?
Page 4, line
Page 4, line 11?
11.
Yeah, it didn't get the whole, there was a fifth condition precedent that was added by the, during the discussion. Okay. And then on page 5, line 25, there was an additional condition precedent, which was certification of monumentation of the new boundaries that has been set. And that's, oh yeah, I'm sorry, and on page 6, that motion 35, we did refer to our reasoning was it was based upon the information provided by the applicant. Was the reason for granting the waiver.
All right. Anything else, Don? Anybody else have any comments, revisions? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it unanimously. Thank you. All right, before we start, Mikhail, I guess we'll appoint you. Tim is not here tonight, so he's not right now, so you be a voting member in his place. So, first on the agenda is pursuant to RSA 676:4ID and Appendix B, site plans of the municipal code of the town of Newmarket, New Hampshire. There will be a continuation of a public hearing for an application for a major site plan review requested by 11 Chapel Street LLC, requesting approval from the conversion of approved retail space on the first floor of a new barn, parentheses, bike shop, to an apartment. The property is located on real property with an address of 11 Chapel Street, tax map U2, Lot 3, within the M2 zoning district. Good evening. Would you,
Good evening, Eric Weinberg with Altus Engineering.
so Eric, would you give us, I guess, a brief update of what has changed since our last meeting? Let's go through the edits, please.
That's right where I was going to go. So there were some recommendations at the last meeting of what you wanted. And so what we've done is we've removed the exterior stairs to make room for more parking between the barn and the building. We've added 2/3 parking stalls to the plan. I'll get back to that. We turned the stairs to the barn deck off to the side to avoid vehicular conflicts. We've updated the parking computation, and we've added a note to the plan stating that all proposed landscaping shall remain in perpetuity unless relief from the planning board is granted. We've also added a note saying that all permanent lighting shall be dark sky friendly. We've added all the approvals and previous approvals and waivers to the plan notes. And we've added in the application material, a waiver for undersized parking stall. And the only other thing I'd like to say is that I think in Bart's review, you can identify that there's a conflict between our notes and what our plan says about the parking stalls. So what I'm showing is that we have 3 new stalls in between the 2 buildings where the stairwell was, and that there's 2 gravel spaces, and then there's the 3rd that's a grass space. So I didn't really feel like I could call it a full space, but it's an area we're designating for parking, and I'll call it and number it and however you guys feel comfortable with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments? All right, I guess I'll start. I'm comfortable with having that as a 6th parking spot. I think that reduces eliminates the need for a waiver. Right, Bart?
Yep.
But you can leave the plan as is. That shows a 6th spot, so I'm fine with that. What's everybody else's thought?
Do we just need the waiver from the size?
We still need
Yes.
a waiver for the size.
Correct.
I would support that and agree with it.
What's anybody else think? Anybody else have issues with that, or are we good?
Does the second floor need some kind of outside fire out?
Second means of egress. I think they have it. It's a deck out right there, right? Second floor deck.
That would be beyond our purview anyway.
Oh,
It's a building code.
We don't look at the
But
building.
I think it's provided.
Okay.
I don't hear a lot of chatter. Everybody good? All right, then I will say we should take on the waiver request first, which is in the letter attached with the package. So I'll read this for the record. Request a waiver from section 3.02B, parking lot design. 1A1, parking stall shall be large enough to fully contain a rectangle 9 feet wide by 18 feet long. The reasoning is shall not be detrimental to the public health, safety, and general welfare. The response is by allowing undersized parking stalls, the applicant will be able to provide more on-site parking, which will reduce the potential for the development to utilize nearby public parking stalls and reduce congestion and overcrowding of town street. B, shall not be injurious to other parties, and providing additional on-site parking will not be injurious to other parties. In fact, it will benefit nearby property owners by eliminating uses of public parking spaces. And C, shall be consistent with the purpose and intent of this regulation. It says 9 by 18 parking stalls are generally intended for public access where there's a high rate of vehicular turnover during the day. Residential parking has limited turnover, thus there is less potential for conflicts with access to the vehicles.
Just to clarify that that is what the applicant is submitting for their waiver and
Yes.
reasoning.
Yes, that's their waiver request. Yep.
Record.
So for what it's worth, I mean, I would much rather have the parking on the lot than on the corner of that street. I don't know how familiar people are with that, but people park on that corner, and I'd much rather have them crowded on the lot than be crowded on the road. So, what's the pleasure of the board? I'll entertain a motion to approve the waiver.
I make a motion to grant the waiver request from the applicant, from section 3.02B on parking lot and parking design sizes to reduce said spaces as shown on the plan, including the number 6 parking space, based upon the reasoning provided by the applicant.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion relative to the waiver? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the waiver say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes 7-0. And now I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion for approval.
Can I ask one question?
Sure, absolutely.
Would there be a reasoning to put, I know 6 is an additional space that needs to be used. Is there any reason that the members think there might be possibility to place a bollard around the 2 propane tanks adjacent to the parking lot site, or parking spot site?
Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
That would be the only.
I'm fine with that. That's,
I don't know if they
it
could
doesn't
fit one
hurt.
with a spot.
Up by the 6th space,
Yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know if it'll ever be used,
I don't-
but it's, could be a little.
I think that it's prudent to do that, probably as soon as the supplier sees someone parking, they're gonna want it, so
Okay.
yeah, that makes good sense.
And are those, where are those noted on the plan? I see them drawn, but where's the legend?
They're
It's-
labeled,
It's right here, Bill.
as existing bollards, typical, but,
I understand that, but the tanks aren't labeled.
Oh,
Jeff just knows them, because that's what the survey is.
No, they have it on the other plan.
Okay.
yeah.
On the
Existing
C1,
conditions?
C1 shows
Yeah,
them
yeah.
100 gallon propane tank.
Because I remember when we first heard this.
So my only other comment on the plan would be, I'd like to see the plan, if you're gonna add the bollard, add, the parking requirements show that there's 6 spaces, not 5. On-site parking proposed 6.
That's in the notes, correct?
Yes, in the notes, note 5. Anybody else have any comments? All right, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Were there any, staff recommendations?
For approval or,
Yeah.
in addition to, no, basically I wanted just the board to discuss, the 6 parking spot, which you have already. And then for conditions, just site plan be updated, plan recorded, if it were to be approved.
And the,
Yeah,
and the
and then
impact fees.
impact fees.
All right, I'll give this one. I'll make a motion to approve the, major site plan major site plan for 11 Chapel Street LLC for the conversion of the approved retail space on the first floor of a new barn to an apartment. Property located on real property with address 11 Chapel Street, tax map U2 Lot 3 within the M2 zoning district, subject to the, under notes 5 on the minor site plan, that is changed to 6 spaces instead of 5 on each of those. The minor site plan, this is a major, right?
It's a major.
Title's changed to major. Site plan. The parking space number 6 is color-coded to be designated as such, consistent with the other, parking spaces. And then 2 bollards be, shown on the plan and to be installed in front of the propane tanks by the existing 3-bedroom residents. And continue subject to the general conditions outlined in the town staff report memo of Tuesday, August 9th, 2022.
Thank you, Val. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, good luck.
thank you very much. Thank you. Lynn.
Alrighty, while they're moving on, next on the agenda is RSA, pursuant to RSA 676:4I D and Appendix B site plan of the municipal code of the town of Newmarket, New Hampshire, there will be a continuation of a public hearing for an application for site plan review and special use permit requested by CC Railroad Street Newmarket LLC, located on real property with an address of 3 Railroad Street, tax map U3, Lot 138A within the M2A zone. Proposed application seeks to demolish existing non-conforming buildings and construct a new 8-unit residential building within the current footprint with a pertinent infrastructure. So, welcome, this is continuation of the public hearing, and I believe I need to open up the special use permit hearing. Good evening, please introduce yourselves and we'll get rolling.
I'm Spencer Stebbins, manager of CC Railroad Street, Newmarket also. I'm Mike Seeger with Horizons Engineering.
So, would you guys just update us on what changes have been made since our last saw you at the last meeting, please?
So I left last time with the engineering review from Underwood, and then also with the denial of the waiver for the boundary survey. And so I've come back this evening with a boundary survey that I submitted for the actual subject parcel, which is the large rectangle U3138A. Looks like it's much larger, but the actual parcel there. So I have that boundary survey for us to kind of go over and review. And then I have gone through the full review and submitted it back and made the changes on the from the engineering review, and we could go down through those, or I could just kind of maybe go over the plan a little bit. And
Yeah, I prefer that.
basically made most of the changes.
Yep.
Art did note that there was one about the sewer that I didn't make, and I can talk to you about that, and you can figure that out, or we can discuss that. And then I also submitted a waiver for curbing. And then I saw something about a waiver for scale, which I can never really figure out.
It's the perpetual waiver that we always make, so.
So I'll ask for that waiver
Yeah.
too on the scale. So, the changes that were made, basically on the site plan, so the roof slopes from front to back, and this being the front, and the railroad tracks being the back. So we have put scuppers on the back of the building, or the architect has proposed them, and so we put a stone drip edge to collect all that runoff coming off the back of the building. Right now, the roof is peaked, so, and it's what they call kind of like a salt box design, but, 50% of the roof, because there is an overhang out back, or maybe 40% goes to the back now, and the rest goes to the front, and then that runoff kind of comes down around this way eventually. It's pretty flat. So that's the change I made there.
Mark, before you move off of that, where is that noted on the plan?
What?
Is that the stone drip edge?
Right there.
What plan sheet is that?
Yeah, it did say that.
Not on the site plan.
I think it still says 5 foot wide brick paver by accident.
Yeah, so one of the plans I think haven't been updated.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's all.
So where,
On the site
geez.
plan,
So
we
where
left
are you?
it, site 5-foot walkway, which we've taken off going around the back.
C-102 says
See,
stone drip edge. Yeah, shows it as a drip edge
with no walkway?
with no walkway.
Yeah, we
See,
were able to remove the walkway and I
Right.
put in the entrance to mechanical through the
Right,
side. I'll show you them.
Okay, but wait a minute.
That's okay,
As far as the site plan goes, this
Gee.
has not been updated to show that?
Yes, it's been updated. It's right. It shows it right here on the site plan. It's right hatched.
Are you on the erosion and utility?
C-101.
Sorry, I wanna see 101.
C101 appears to show it, but the notation isn't updated.
Yeah,
label.
we have no notations to what that is on C-101.
Right. I said he didn't change that.
Okay, that's where I was trying to get.
But it's here on C-102. But it's the same hatching, the same size.
Okay. But to be clear, on the site plan, the proposed 5-foot brick walkway walkway is coming off behind the building.
Yeah, so it stops right here now, see
Yeah.
that edge right
Okay.
there?
And a designation to that hatched mark as shown on C-102 will be added to the site plan.
Yep. Yeah, so the reason that we were able to take that off is we removed the, remember there were doors in the rear and they went into, the utility rooms?
Left.
And,
Top left.
right here. And what happened was, the architect was able to change that so that you go through this door, go straight through to the utility rooms now. So the utility room location didn't change, just the access. And now it's just on one side, so you just stop that walkway, right there at the back of the building.
Can I ask a question about the stone? So is the stone basically in place of, I know we spoke of maybe dry wells or something in the TRC meeting?
Yeah.
So is the stone drip edge in place of that?
Yep. So I just thickened that drip edge up and put it in there to accept all the water that comes off there, so it doesn't just erode that bank. And then it'll just seep out of there onto the railroad tracks like it does now. So there's no increase in drainage. I revised the drainage report. We were having a decrease in drainage anyway because of the decrease in the impervious surface, so there's still no change in the drainage.
On the site plan, one other item is just the, I know we discussed perhaps a fence keeping people from going past the end of the walkway by the utility room, across the end of the short section, and then maybe some on the other side where the
Yep.
pavers are,
Yeah, I
the
mean,
paver patio is.
I don't know, I guess we could add it. I don't think we need it because we have all this vegetation that's there, and then we pulled the sidewalk back away from there. But it would just be really,
But you wouldn't have the vegetation up against the building.
no, but it comes right to the corner of the building there, and then.
Are you saying no one could walk between the vegetation and the building, get behind it?
They could, yeah.
I was most concerned with this, just the space, because there was already a gap between, on the left edge, plant
On
left
this
there,
one?
yeah.
Yeah, I guess we could add a fence at that patio there. I mean, I think that this area is gonna only really be used for utility workers if they're going in there to work on something. No, none of the tenants are going in there, so, I mean, this is used by the tenants, so we could put a fence to that corner, you know, to get that in. I mean, you do understand that you could walk off the property anywhere, right? So,
Yeah, I'm just thinking of like
Yep.
families or kids or
Kids.
something playing around on that patio and just wandering out there.
right, yeah, I mean, I don't know how many kids are gonna be there, because they're one bedroom units, but, yeah.
On the train
it
tracks.
could.
You're gonna hear more. Probably don't want to be there.
I grew up with train tracks in my backyard. Just
Well,
That's where we wanted to play.
So, and then the other thing we did was, show the removal of the, part of the train tracks where we were taking that out, which was a call from, the town engineer, and then, I think that was pretty much it on the site. Then we, changed the water, and brought that in back to go right in to where the utility rooms are gonna be. The sewer, and then, and what we did, so there was a comment from the engineer, from the town engineer about the water. So why don't we bring a 6-inch water line outside of the roadway, so we don't go back into the roadway? Which was a great idea, so I brought the 6-inch outside and then went down to a 4-inch, because the sprinkler system only requires that. So on the property here. He made that same suggestion on the sewer, and it's a good suggestion, but the only reason I didn't do that is because we are, not sure of the future development. So the sewer, the water's a lot easier, because it doesn't have to be gravity. strategically without knowing what's going forward, so, because there's, you know, manholes right here, I just brought the same sewer line in, but added a clean out right there. I don't know if that's gonna be adequate for future buildings or not. It's not the furthest downhill portion of the sewer, because the sewer's going downhill down Railroad Street, so, I'm up kinda close to the high end of the sewer, so that was my hesitation for doing that. I just don't think it's gonna solve the problem, and we may have to go back out into the road to redo it anyway in the future. So, if you disagree, we can change it, but that's.
No, it makes sense. I mean, you have to change it in the future, you have to change it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want them to have to go back out on the road and dig it back up, 'cause it's a lot more money. I just don't think,
Is that something that Sean should approve?
Sean was okay with this, if I remember
it's
correctly.
okay. It wasn't Sean, it was the town
Robert.
engineer who asked for that,
Okay.
not the sewer
Right.
department.
Yeah.
They were kind of okay with it, but again, you know, we'll do it. That's my reasoning for not doing it. I just don't know that it's gonna solve the problem.
Yep.
So if Sean disagrees with that, and I think on the staff notes, we're gonna go back and talk with the town engineer and get their final sign off anyways.
Exactly, that's on the site plan.
Let's see, I think everything else is, pretty much the same. I did add some construction sequencing stuff, like concrete washout areas, all the silk fence has been added, or additional silk fence, and, you know, updating the sewer and water, the walkways and so forth. I don't believe the, landscape plan changed, and we did submit a lighting plan, and it's just, it's all building mounted lights, and there's, you know, so they're just pretty, downward facing right down towards the building. You see that she still has one that's out back, so maybe we could remove that one since there's two doors there.
Mike, back on the landscaping plan, it's not consistent with the site plan, so that should be pervious to pave the patio.
What's that?
It's just not
yeah.
consistent with the site plan, and then during the TRC, we talked about the brick walkways also being pervious.
Yeah, so what I felt like we just wanted to make the patio pervious, not the brick walkways. Really, brick walkways, I don't think are, you know, it's in a much flatter area over here, and then I just didn't think they were big enough to help. But with this area right here, where there was, you know, water coming off the front of the building, the way it sits today, I felt that that would alleviate any excess that was coming there from before, even though we're not, you know, now we're taking it all this way, but I can catch more coming that way and infiltrate that in there, so just kind of balancing that out, so. I didn't know if the, you know, the walkways were really gonna do that, cause they're kind of narrow and stuff right there, that's why. And I can have the, landscape plan updated to show, I just changed that, at the last, you know, through this last design, so I didn't go back to,
Yeah, they'll have to update the sidewalk in the back and eliminate all that stuff. Same as, just make it the same as your
Yep.
design sheet. Yep.
yeah.
Any-
I'm just gonna quickly go through this to see if there was anything. We updated the building footprint to match the architectural plan. We added a contaminated soils note in the event that we find it when we're digging. And then there was some updated details.
for access, utilities, snow storage, off-site improvements, et cetera. Where's that on the,
I don't have it yet. I think we're trying to develop that, so I will add that to the revised plan.
So on the revised site plan, that'll be added.
Excuse me, if you're gonna, sir, if you're gonna talk, please come up and introduce yourself. That's fine.
I'm Henry Stebbins, and I'm counsel for the applicant. We're going to draft a document and get it to the staff for review shortly.
Thank you.
Anything else, Val?
no, I think that was everything from TRC. Could you revisit, what's the situation with the, because we didn't waive the survey, so where, I don't have.
There's a
anything
survey
else.
plan here.
Separate survey plan?
Stamped, yeah.
Yeah, so we had Norway Plains go back and do a survey, which I submitted.
Yes,
And
it's in
so,
the package.
they completed it, I mean, they didn't really have to do much, because they had already had the information, like I was saying, but they,
So are
made
they
it in.
adding this to the site plan?
What's that?
Are they adding this to the site plan?
That needs to be part of the package.
Yeah, it would have to be part of the package, or just, I guess, recorded. So,
My only note on that would be just the final one be signed and dated along the stamp.
Yeah,
okay.
it's not.
Well,
There's
it's
one-
saying on the site plan, there's no signature blocks or.
That was a question I had about whether the complete boundary of the whole site could be shown on the site plan.
That's what gets recorded.
But it is technically, so this is
Well,
the,
yeah, so the other, the rest of the improvements are happening, it's not considered the site.
right, those are technically through an easement,
So,
yeah. So that'd be on the site plan.
So the site plan should have a note about
Yeah.
about these blanket easements over.
Right.
This,
but it doesn't need to show
Oh, the boundary.
the boundary and stamped on that.
Not if it's blanket, I don't think.
But I just mean to prove and show the improvements within the parcel. And the boundary is on there, and it has bearings and distances on it.
Yeah, so I had that.
Not, like, would they all be added, and then that stamp? But I don't know that the survey would stamp.
Probably not, right?
so, but
They
just to
never
be
do.
clear,
So I would
is
just.
Norway Plains going to add the survey or someone to the site plan, and Norway Plains is gonna stamp the site plan?
Well, you have this right here, which didn't really change.
But
like I
under
said
our-
in the plans, and
What's required under our regulations? On the
So
site plan.
boundary survey is required, and I have,
Right.
a boundary survey that's stamped by Norway Plains. I can add that to the package, the boundary survey that was done for completed for the property. So I can add that to the package. I just took, the Norway Plains boundary, we ended up, Horizons doing the topography, and then we made an existing conditions plan out of the boundary plan and the topography, because we changed it or we've added
I
topography.
personally would rather see this separate plan, because
And
on,
you want a note on the
because on this you
site
can't
plan?
read it, yes.
You want a note on the site plan?
Yes.
With the recording information of the boundary survey?
Well, a note on here just saying for boundary details, see sheet 2 of the package or whatever
I
it may
can
be.
add,
This you can read, if you did that on this plan, you wouldn't be able to read it.
I can add the, like I said, that other boundary plan that is stamped. I think that's already recorded, actually.
Yeah, I just didn't know if it needed to be part of the package that we
This
had.
is the standard part of it. Yeah, this is verbatim, the plat sheets which provide a required boundary or other survey information shall be certified as to the accuracy of the plan, shall be stamped by and signed by a New Hampshire licensed land surveyor.
So this site plan, under our regulations, is supposed to be stamped.
Says plat sheets.
Plat
provides-
sheets.
Plat
Just
sheets.
needs that
Yeah,
Okay.
more of this.
More of this, more of the survey plan.
But I just didn't know if we needed one of these, which they've already done, I believe, for the other site, to be part of this
Correct.
package.
Yeah, I can,
Where all the improvements are on
Oh.
top of, that's all.
I would think we wouldn't need it, but it wouldn't hurt if they had it.
yeah, I can reference that plan. Well, I'm just gonna
So
get,
the proposed easements would likely reference that,
I can,
if they're over that.
of the site
Yeah,
plan.
then what I can do is say, that this plan, the reference from this plan is of that.
Right.
I have all those notes on there, but that was based from that plan.
Yep.
And then I can reference, the site plan can have the same reference.
In the site plan, I believe it's supposed to have tax map and lot numbers. Are those showing?
They should be there.
101? I mean, we don't record this whole package, so that's kind of the reason I'm asking these questions.
Yeah, I can turn those.
It's for both lots.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's just all shown on this plan, and then we probably should.
I think on the first one, existing conditions.
Yeah, you have them on the existing conditions plan. Yeah. Yep.
So basically just carry those through, and that
Right,
is
turn it
shown here.
Right. Right. Yep.
And would that be on like the grading plan and all that too, or just?
Now, I think just
It's
C,
getting recorded.
just C one
Plan,
oh
yeah,
one.
the plan that will be recorded.
I would say C 101,
Yeah.
right? But,
Yes, I agree with that. C101 is the plan that you want to have all this information on.
Yeah, they won't record it without boundary information.
oh, true.
That's the hard
That's
part.
true.
That's not gonna record it without.
Do you record the site plan?
We would, yeah, we would record it.
I mean, this plan's already gonna be very difficult to get through the registry as it is, as difficult as they are.
Site plans are recorded, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Well, we should have that discussion then. I think.
Yeah, will they record the plan with the planning board signature? Surveys.
Unless it meets all its standards,
Okay,
right,
well,
Jeff?
They won't record it without the survey.
Survey,
Right.
yeah.
Well, that, I guess we're the same.
That's it.
I mean, maybe, I can talk to Norway Plans, and they did the boundary survey for everything. I mean, I don't know why the surveyor has to stamp the site plan, because the site plan has all the
I think it's just the,
stuff on it, but maybe they can.
Stamp it for the boundaries.
correct, just stamp it for the
Yeah.
boundaries, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're confirming that these
Right.
proposed changes are within, on your lot.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, you work with Bart and with the registry, because the registry's very difficult, and get something that they will accept.
Oh, yeah, I'm familiar.
It's, yeah, we all. I mean, you have to work that out in the
So,
details.
Can we talk turnaround? How long do you think he can say to get to the standards that they needed? How long is that turnaround, you think, on your end? To get a plan to me, so I can send it to,
What I'll do is just go back and talk to Norway Plains, and we'll just kind of clean things up and move things around and make sure nothing's crossing, and
okay.
everything's correct, and then, we'll add a couple notes here. I don't know about the reference to the easements, if it would be something specific, but just get that on there, and
Yep.
then I think we could get something within just a week or two, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, well, your attorney's here, they can add language, to be recorded. Something on that, as far as the blanket easements. But to be clear, the easements that's being drafted is for access, utility, snow storage, and all off-site improvements.
Yes, yes. And the use of all those
Waste to produce their,
walkways.
And maintenance.
pass or pass.
Does anybody else have any questions on the meat of the design here? Any questions, comments? All right, so thinking we should
Did
talk
all,
to,
did all the Bart stuff yet?
no, well, it's gonna be, we're gonna talk about all that stuff still.
Oh, okay.
But I think we ought to talk about the special use permit first, right?
Yep.
And.
Go through that criteria, documents.
Right, right. So on Bart's package on sheet 2, last half of the page is, the standards for the special use permit. So,
Did everyone on the board receive those? The fiscal impact and the marketing analysis? I mean, I had asked for it separately, but,
They were on the website, right?
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
That's
yep, you got it. So I will, just read point by point on this, and we can discuss it. The planning board shall require a fiscal impact study be completed by a consultant selected by the town, paid for by the applicant, that shows a multifamily residential or mixed-use project with 3 units or more residential units will not have a negative fiscal impact on the town. Bart's point is the applicant has provided a fiscal impact study. The board needs to determine if the documents provided are adequate to satisfy this requirement, or if a new study should be prepared by consultant of the board's selection.
So on that note, this is the same firm that has been doing this fiscal impact studies.
And,
So,
and this was, it looks like this was originally done for the ZBA,
correct.
is that correct?
Yeah, that was part of a special exception criteria.
I take no exception to this report. I'm certainly not gonna pretend to say I know all the details, but it's a fiscal analysis that says we're gonna get positive tax revenue.
And workforce housing.
Correct. Correct. Were you gonna say something else?
No issues.
Anybody, okay, so, so should we vote point by point?
No, I'll just go through
Just
them
go
all.
on,
and
okay.
then-
The board shall require a market analysis be completed by consultants selected by the town, paid for by the applicant, that demonstrates the or mixed-use project with 3 units or more residential units will not have a negative impact on the town's housing market. The applicant has provided a fiscal impact study. The board needs to determine if the documents provided are adequate.
Yeah, market.
Provide a
Market, yeah.
Market.
So that was just a carryover. So similar to fiscal impact, same.
Same thing.
Same thing.
Yep.
There's a need for farmers.
Yes.
Right.
There's no stock.
C is the applicant shall have at least 2 on-site parking spaces per residential unit. And we all know the applicant received a variance from the standard on June 27th, 2022 by the zoning board of adjustment meeting. And D, multifamily residential use with no commercial use within the building shall be limited to no greater than 4 residential units within a single building. And again, the applicant received a variance from the standard at the June 27th, 2022 zoning board of adjustment meeting. And E, no residential unit shall be located in the street level space if the building has frontage on North Main Street, South Main Street, or Exeter Road. And it appears that this standard has been met, which I agree with.
And it doesn't apply.
Seeing it doesn't apply, exactly. So, any discussion on the validity of what we have, and any questions, concerns? If there are none, I will entertain a motion.
Is there a public hearing?
This is a public hearing, so
Oh, I gotta close the
hearings,
public hearing?
yeah, public hearings need to be closed.
Oh, all right, so I'll close both of them?
You can, if you want
As
to.
well, right? So I'll close the public,
Did you ask if anyone's here for the
Oh.
vote? No, but just for the
there's
record.
nobody, is there anybody here to speak to this? Wally? No? Nothing? Okay. I will close the public hearing for the special use permit. And then I will entertain a motion to approve the special use permit based on the previous discussion. Oh, wait a minute, what did I do wrong?
No, just say, I would close everything, I think it's cleaner. Yeah.
Anybody want to speak to the site plan application? I will close that public hearing also. And that's it. All right, okay, now we can move on. Wait, I'll never figure this out. All right, so a special use permit, will entertain a motion to approve the special use permit.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Motion made second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion passes 7-0. Alrighty, now for the site plan. We have a waiver request, didn't we,
We have
for
two,
curbing?
technically three, but I think one of them is not applicable. Cause, board can find, what is it? So on, 3.02B4, if the board finds that the standard's not applicable, it doesn't apply. I don't think it, so it gives the board, an out, so it doesn't have to grant a waiver, it's at their discretion.
So what is the standard?
The standard says, what did I say, 3 what?
3.02
B4.
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 It's,
No.
yeah, 1 second. 2B4 says curbing. Curbing shall be provided only as needed to control traffic and to direct drainage. Curbing shall be granite in the M1, M2 districts and shall be concrete elsewhere. So that
Oh,
phrase, as needed.
As far as I'm concerned, it's not needed.
So this is the discussion for the board, yeah?
Right, so,
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
The word needed.
it's not needed for the drainage, if it were,
I'll make a motion that, site plans regulation standard 3.02B4 does not apply to this application.
Second.
seconded, motion's made and seconded, any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously.
So then the two remaining waiver requests would be 3.01E and then 4.08.
Can you just have the applicant read in the
Yeah.
reasoning for the
Sure.
request for those waivers?
Mike, you wanna do that?
So on the 3.01E at the, along the frontage or the entrances, the reason is there's already Cape Cod bituminous curbing out there now along Railroad Street. And we're proposing to continue that in around the radius of the entrance, to keep the curb, or to keep the entrance curved and then bring that in. But we don't feel that we should go to granite for just that, those radiuses, if there's already the bituminous curbing out there, and there's really no like drainage system on the site, so that's why we don't feel like we should go down into the site. There is a closed drainage system out on Railroad Street, which is controlled by the bituminous curbing, kind of. So catch basins are a little bit too high.
I don't
So it all
remember,
flows onto the site anyways.
right, I don't remember talking about this specifically at the,
We did talk about.
At the
Cape
tannery.
we
Cod.
talked about
We did.
TUC.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did, yeah. We did talk about it, I think everyone was in agreement that,
Yeah.
Cape Cod permit is appropriate.
Yeah, and just to kind of round that out.
Yep.
So I'll make a motion that we grant waiver, from 3.01E to permit the, use of Cape Cod.
Bituminous.
Curbing, bituminous curbing, be consistent, with the existing curbing along Railroad Street, as supported by the applicant's, request for waiver.
Is there a second? Motion's made and seconded, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it unanimously, thank you. And there was one more?
Scale.
Oh, scale.
That won't have any effect
It's,
on.
that's a housekeeping item on our end.
Yeah. So we can't read it if you.
Just say can't read it.
Yeah.
I think,
Is that your reasoning?
I can't read it. I can't even read my waiver.
Right.
Make a motion to grant a waiver from section 4.08 regarding the scale.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes, motion passes.
who seconded that one,
unanimously.
sorry?
What was that?
Jeff, oh, Jay.
Change?
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so now, we take up the site plan. Is there a motion to approve the site plan?
You want
Oh, we gotta
Bart
go
to
through
go
Bart's
through
stuff.
his-
Yeah.
Yeah, so, if the board were to approve this or make a motion to approve, that's just all the items that were discussed today, then plans need to be added. Those items need to be added to
Bart,
the plan.
sorry, can you just go through the list so that they're in the minutes?
Sure,
Thanks.
okay.
Because
So-
otherwise, the minutes are just gonna reflect your
Gotcha.
conversation.
Alright, so, conditions precedent, if the board were to approve, would be plan modifications. Will be added, so submit the revised site plan and architectural elevation plans to the planning department to review for compliance, which shall include add all applicable variances, special use permits, and waivers granted onto the plan, delineate all areas where easements permitting residents from 3 Railroad Street, tax map U3, lot 138A, to use land on 5 Railroad Street, tax map U4, map 16. Also add reference to sheet C101 of the recorded parking, access easement, and utilities, and everything that we discussed at this meeting. Satisfy all comments from Underwood engineers on all issues identified during their review. Submit all documentation of all applicable local, state, federal approvals. Submit revised site plan to the planning department for review for compliance with this decision prior to its recording at the Rockingham County Registry of Deeds. Submit draft parking easement to the planning department for review and approval prior to recording at the Rockingham County Registry of Deeds. Applicant to pay all reasonable fees specifically related to the review of this application incurred with respect to the town's engineering review services, and then conditions subsequent. So conditions precedent would have been prior to the issuance of a building permit. Conditions subsequent would be following items shall be met prior to commencement of any ground disturbance. All precedent conditions are met. Applicant shall enter into a construction inspection agreement with the town and its consultant engineer to ensure the site plan is built in accordance with the approved plan. The applicant shall reimburse the town for all associated inspection observance costs. Construction schedule shall be submitted to the planning department and the Department of Public Works for the purpose of tracking the construction and informing the public of anticipated activities on the site. A pre-construction meeting between the town and staff and its consultant engineer has occurred or to occur. Limits of clearing have been established and approved by the town. All construction activities shall be done in accordance with the conditions of all local, state, and federal permits. All appropriate erosion sedimentation control structures are in place. All erosion and sedimentation control methods are to be in place prior to the pre-construction meeting. Following items shall be met prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy. Applicant shall submit a letter from the project engineer stating that the improvements constructed as shown on the plans substantially comply with the decision as endorsed by the plan board. 24 by 36 inch copy of an electronic PDF file of the as-built plans with appropriate professional stamps shall be submitted. AutoCAD files of all as-built structures and infrastructure located on the lot shall be filed with the plan department. Documentation demonstrating that all applicable residential impact fees have been paid. Payment of impact fees may occur prior to the respective control unit's issuance of certificate of occupancy. Following impact fee schedule has been calculated for this project. Multifamily plus 5 units, public schools $743, recreation facilities $279, water $791, wastewater $475, total $2,287 per unit, total amount owed $2,878 times 8, dwelling units equals $18,296. General conditions, following conditions shall be adhered to prior to, during, and post-construction of the development. The site plan review approval shall be deemed to have lapsed in 24 months after the day of approval unless active and substantial development has commenced within said period as provided in RSA 674:39. Contractor shall contact DigSafe prior to commencement of any excavation. Damage to town utilities, roadways, or infrastructure shall be replaced by the project owner at his own expense. On-site materials storage shall be permitted during construction in accordance with all state and federal regulations. No fuel storage shall be permitted during construction except as is reasonably required for construction and or temporary heat. Any revision shall be submitted to the town plan for review. If these revisions are deemed substantial or not consistent with the intent of this approval, the developer must submit revised plans to the plan board for approval. Any plants, trees, shrubs that have been incorporated into the landscaping plan approved in this decision that die within 2 years from this date of planting shall be replaced by the applicant. The applicant shall file site plan modification request with the plan board in the instance any of the depicted natural features of the approved plan are removed with no stormwater best management practice replacement. Notwithstanding, in the instance stormwater runoff were to increase due to on-site modifications, the applicant shall file a site plan modification application with the plan board for review and approval. And the provisions of this conditional approval shall apply to and be binding upon the applicant, its employees, and all successors, assigns, and interests or control.
Thank you.
Number 9, under conditions substitute, instead of 2,278, it's 2,287.
Excuse me, yes. Yeah, the total being 18,296. Yep, understood. Thank you. Thank you for clarification.
All right.
Okay.
Thank
And
you,
then you
Bob.
skipped over on 1, C and D, so those need to be added. Add professional stamps to site plan, architectural plan sets.
Yes.
And on note C 101, stating all proposed and future lighting fixtures on the lot shall be dark side compliant.
All righty, does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? Everybody okay with?
Should we note the additional conditions precedent that we discussed this evening?
Yep. Give us a list of those, Val, so.
I think from the notes I took is that fencing shall be added in the area adjacent to the patio recreation area. The notation regarding the bridge edge from C-102 will be added to C-101. Tax map and lot numbers noted on the existing conditions plan shall be carried through the plan sets. I'm sorry, Jeff?
Saying that, there are abutting lots that aren't shown on there, too, that they're required to be added to meet our standard. Like across Railroad Street, adjacent to the L5 at the left end of it.
All right, so carry the tax map and lot numbers from the existing conditions plans.
Yeah, they're just,
They're on the other lots, right?
not all of them, but I don't understand.
Okay. Which meet our regulation requirements. All right.
Just go through number 3 again, the existing conditions.
The tax map and lot numbers?
Yes.
The tax map and lot numbers get carried through to C-101 from the existing conditions plan, and any additional adjacent lots to the subject or the encumbered parcel are also designated with the correct tax map and lot numbers. Is that what you wanted, Jeff?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
The boundary survey is added to C-101. A note is also added to C-101 in regards to easements for access and maintenance of utilities, snow storage, and all off-site improvements.
And, building overhangs, do we,
And any encroachments.
what you talked about, the TRC.
Are we talking about easements right now? I'm trying to get the note about the easements.
I thought they were, because the building overhang was gonna go past the property line. Potentially.
I don't think it does, so that's why he designated, I don't know if Adam's still on, but I don't
Oh, did he change that?
with the 2-foot overhang, which is required.
He's on.
there still an easement request for the overhangs?
Yes.
So those are 2-foot overhangs. Mike, can you confirm the distance of the property line off of that side of the building? I think it's under a foot. Is that correct?
Yep. Yes, we'll do those.
Looks like it's 0.8.
So we'll do an easement for those overhangs. Exactly.
So what was, can you repeat that, Jeff, to be added to the,
There were easements for the overhangs over the front
Front.
doors,
so those
front
need to be
entrance
shown
ways,
on the
access
plan?
ways.
Okay.
Or it'll be part of that. It'll be part of the
The
overall.
general easement.
Yes.
So, all right, off-site improvements and encroachments. And that the, final plan set is approved by the town engineer in regards to the water and sewer hookups.
It's on the plan. It's on the, it's a note, yeah.
Right here.
Yep.
Okay. I think that's, was everything.
That's right. Thank you, Val. Anybody have anything else to add or talk about? Any questions, comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve, subject to what we just talked about.
I'll make, did the applicant have any issues or questions relative to the conditions?
Hold on for the,
We're
Well-
good with all.
go ahead, ask that question, go ahead, I'm sorry.
We're good with all those conditions.
I was just asking about, we should talk about the vesting to move forward.
Can we do that after,
Yeah, you can do it during the motion.
Oh, all right, okay,
Yep.
okay.
during the motion, or have a separate motion for vesting?
I would do
We've
approval,
always had,
approval, then vesting.
right, that's how we've
Yeah, okay.
typically done
Yep.
it. Okay, so, I will make a motion to approve the, site plan, submitted by CC Railroad Street Newmarket LLC, for property located at 3 Railroad Street, tax map U3, lot 138A, within the M2A zone, to demolish the existing non-conforming buildings and construct a new 8-unit residential building with the current footprint with appurtenant infrastructure. Subject to the staff report recommendations dated August 9th, 2002.
2022.
Sorry, 2022, relative to conditions precedent outlined in that memo, conditions subsequent, and general conditions as, as modified and expanded by the board's discussion in regards to those conditions.
Thank you, Val. Is there a second?
Second.
You got it.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations. Great, now we need to
Vesting?
talk about vesting.
Right.
Yeah, so, in the, as part of the, conditions of approval that was just approved, work doesn't commence within 24 months without any substantial completion, in accordance to vesting. The application is null and void, so the board needs to have a discussion, what does, substantial completion mean? And when does temporary vesting take place? And my recommendation, right now is that, let's see, impact on- so subsequent changes to subdivision regs, so a period of 5 years after the date of final approval of plans would be temporary vesting, provide active and substantial development of the improvements are as shown on the approved site plan occur within 24 months of the date of approval, provided the plan is properly recorded at the Rockingham County Registry Deeds, and at the time of approval and recording, the site plan conforms with the regulations that are in effect. So that's my recommendation.
what's your interpretation of building foundation work is complete? Construction of they're building on the same footprint, or you're putting in a whole new foundation?
Yeah, we're gonna be putting in a whole new foundation. Yeah,
You're tearing it all down.
exactly.
So that's within the 2-year period.
Correct.
What is your time period that you're anticipating?
I have to have it done 14 months from September 1st. To meet, that's if I get the NH Invest funding.
And if you don't?
If I don't get the funding, I'd have to reevaluate this project.
I'm good with the
24
vesting as proposed, 24 months.
And then if,
5 years.
let's just play hypothetical here, say if the NH Invest doesn't go through, but other financing comes in, it still gives time for that, so,
Yep.
if you were thinking about capping at 14 months, that might be.
No, I'm not thinking
reasonable.
that. I'm
Yeah.
thinking, does the building get built within the 2-year time period to be vested? Or do we have a project where we just
To your
basically have a
point, I mean,
vacant foundation
exactly.
sitting there?
I mean, construction costs would have to come down a good amount to, make this happen.
But there'll also be other funding rounds from that NH Invest as well. Potentially.
You don't see any supply chain issues for you to be able to make these timelines?
I think everyone's gonna run into them.
Okay. And I would agree with you, yeah.
It's in the air. Hard to say.
Well, I'll put a motion on the table.
Okay.
For the purposes of vesting, I'll already make a motion that the planning board designate for the purposes of vesting this site plan approval, application and approval, shall be deemed to have permanent vesting upon completion of building and site improvements as shown on the plan, within the 5-year period. And that active and substantial development or building shall occur after removal of the existing building, grading, installation of the infrastructure to include parking, water, sewer, drainage structures, and underground utilities, and construction of the new foundation is completed.
Okay, is that it, Bill?
Yep, that's the
Yep.
basis for vesting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good luck.
The training was a bit low while we were having it.
Yay!
I thought that was kind of eerie, I'll admit.
Maybe a
I
sign.
love the hill too.
Train whistle blew.
Oh, yeah.
Alrighty, onward.
Forward, yes. Oh, Adam, I'll get his last name, but he was the architect.
Right there.
Adam Morrow.
Adam Morrow.
Did you just ask? Who's that?
Alrighty, next is pursuant to RSA 676:4I, paragraph 32-46A, in the M2A district and Appendix B site plan of the municipal code of the town of Newmarket, New Hampshire, there would be a public hearing for an application for site plan review. Hey, guys. For site plan review and special use permit requested by Walter Cheney Jr. of Cheney Property Management Corp. located on real property with addresses of 50 to 56 Exeter Road, tax map U4, lots 11 and 15 within the M2A zone. The proposed application seeks approval under paragraph 3246A, subsection C, waivers to road setback, side rear setback, and structure height to increase the permissible building height to a maximum of 41 feet, while proposing minor site amendments to the approved site plan regarding sidewalk connections within the right-of-way. Good evening.
I'd like to recuse myself.
Okay. I see the applicant and his engineer here. Mike, would you please quickly walk us through what, why you're here and what the changes are proposed, please?
Yes. So the main reason we're back here is because the only reason we're brought back here is because we were doing the structural design on Walter's building, and we noticed that the building height that was noted on all the plans that went through the planning board process was 35 foot 11 to the midpoint of the building. And so as we started into the structural design, we kind of tried to figure out what that actually was being dimensioned to from the architect's standpoint, and then ended up getting into your regulations and noticed that the building height exceeded the 35 feet. So your regulations, like a lot of other town regulations, state that a structure height means the vertical distance from the lowest point of finished grade at the base of the structure to the highest point of the structure, instead of the average grade plane to the midpoint of the roof, like almost every other town. So, Jeff, my structural engineer, said, it looks like we don't meet this requirement, and we spoke with Bart, and it turns out, obviously in your regulations under this, I think we're at section 3246AC, that's a waiver request in the M2A district. So we're just coming back. There's no design change to the plan. This is the plan I presented to you all these years. And so we just caught this discrepancy.
Yeah, so there's no design change at all, it was just a typo.
Just for
Right.
clarification, all the plans that we approved prior did not have the height to the top of the ridge line. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's right.
It's not that you misrepresented the height to the top. You were always, on all the plans, were quoting it as to the midpoint. So that was just missed on our end, engineering planners board.
Yeah, and the architect. I mean, it wasn't,
Everyone missed it.
technically.
It was
me.
missed,
Yeah.
right. And everybody missed it.
But, yeah.
Shocking.
I mean, we missed it too, but we thought that it met it, or that the 11 inches we discussed. I'm
No, but your plans did not show it to the ridge line, which our
Right.
regulations require.
right.
So that was missed
And
by-
I missed that at that time. and so did the
Everybody missed it.
architect, everybody, yes.
There was no misrepresentation on the plans that were submitted.
And for the before we go too far on the record, I want to say that Jeff has recused himself.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I called him Jeff, I'm not throwing Jeff under the bus. Oh, okay.
So yes, that is the case. Yeah. So that, we're here for that, and then while I was coming back, as you know, we have the conditional approval for this, and we've met all the conditions except for the DOT entrance permit. And so I've been working with the DOT, and I haven't been able to get the permit because of, we don't have to go into it, but I really don't know the answer why. But I've met them finally on the site, and they've determined that what they don't like is they don't like that we're putting a stairwell from the corner of the building that I was putting right next to this existing retaining wall, steps that go down to the sidewalk out here. And they didn't like that I continued the sidewalk out with one step and a small retaining wall into to the state's right of way. Even though they approved it with those exact designs, the first time around, which was 2013, 14, whatever that was. So on the second time, I didn't change any of that, except that adding the third floor of the building and that extra building and so forth. And now we've come to this point, there's a new DOT and district engineer, and what they're saying is they don't want to be responsible for the maintenance of that, and they don't want to be liable for somebody falling off of the steps if they're not properly maintained on their right-of-way. So could we remove those out of the right-of-way? We met them on site and talked to them about, that was part of the whole process, you approved it last time, they didn't really care, and they said, no, you need to remove them. So what we ended up doing was, I have no real solution to put another access to the sidewalk down here, and I don't know that it's needed, because there is a slope down there, we did have a few steps, but it goes from 52.8 to about 47 or so, about 5 feet. And then this one, I was able to do a connection out to the sidewalk that's proposed in the park. And so we just ended up turning the sidewalk 90 degrees and coming out. So it also ties into the sidewalk right at that corner, right off of the crosswalk and everything. So that sidewalk still goes out and connects to that other one with the steps coming down. Remember that there's no crosswalk at the railroad tracks anyway, so.
So that right on the right's just being abandoned, you're just changing, you're taking it out, you're grading that down, or with the retaining wall?
Instead of constructing steps in there right next to that retaining wall that's out there, that you might notice when you drive by, we're just gonna end the grade right there and then blend it back into the other side.
So we're basically gonna walk down a little hill to get to the sidewalk if they wanna do that?
If they wanted to go off, they would just walk down it's like a 3-to-1 slope, so it's not terrible. And it's only 5 feet or 4.5 feet. So those are the changes. When we were coming back for the height, and to talk about the height, all that happened right at the exact same time, and so Bart just said, could we just clean that up as an amendment? And so
Makes sense.
that's what I'm doing.
Does anybody have any questions? Comment? Bart? Anybody in the public have anything to say?
Can we have the applicant come up, tell us what's going on the site and what's happening, Mr. Cheney, at the site right now? There seems to be activity there, things coming on.
The only activity, unfortunately, is I had a different piece of property in Lee that I had sold. I had to move a lot of stuff out. So I did relocate it to this lot because I had no other location to bring it to at the time. I have been working on trying to relocate it since. Now that the pressure is off, I'm getting out of the other lot in Lee. So right now, we are also going after some of this federal funding that the previous applicant is going after in order to help make the cost of trying to make this thing happen sooner rather than later. We're running into a bunch of problems with just trying to get all the information. The amount of information that they're requiring to go forward with the application is overwhelming, I'd say, at best. So we're hoping that we can make the deadline of September 2nd, and hopefully if we can get some of that federal funding, we can make the building of this actually happen. But with the cost of everything the way they are, it's just, it's not economical to try to pull the trigger on something this big at this time.
No, and you know we fully supported you in this project over many years, giving you additional extensions. The concern at this point is this is obviously a key entrance to the town. The appearance of bringing all of, storage things there, the sheds, whatever, it's just not a good feeling when you're driving down 108 into town. So, just,
Well,
it's wasn't part of a site plan to do that. I don't
Well, at the
believe
end
it's
of the
allowed in
day,
the zone.
I am limited on what I can do. I can look at trying to move some of that stuff to the back lot, but at the end of the day, I really don't have mean, I've tried to clean up some of the other issues as far as hiding the concrete and rearranging stuff and building some berms. I've hydro-seeded and tried to do some other things to make that work, but it's also been pretty damn dry. So it's trying to get some of the grass to grow to blend some of that has been a little hard as well.
For Wally, I think what Val is
Yeah.
really saying is that just be careful because you may run afoul of code enforcement.
Oh,
It's not for us to say.
Yeah, it's not permitted there.
okay.
Just be careful.
All right, well, I will look at other options of moving it maybe to the back lot where it's not visible from 108, but at the time, I was under the gun and that was the only place I had to go.
Understood.
So,
Understood.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bart, what's your recommendations?
I think, there's still access to the, so my recommendation is I think it's a sensible amendment. The applicant is restricted what he can do with the right of way. DOT is gonna tell them what to do. So, they're still providing access from the lot to a sidewalk, so I think that's a win. Ideally, you'd like two, but, still access there. So, and then the height, the plan board has approved the height as is, nothing's changing. I don't see any reason why the board, shouldn't, grant the special use permit for the waiver, if it's been through such a review process already and agreed upon. So my recommendation is, approval for the amendments and the special use permit.
Oh, with an amendment, minor amendment to the site plan
Yeah.
for the stairs and a special use permit for the height?
Correct. So the waiver would be the special use permit.
Okay.
And then, my only other condition to that would be, subject to the previous approval conditions. That those are maintained. Well, it's an amendment, so I guess it doesn't really matter. Those still stay.
All right, so, at this point, nobody in the public wants to speak to this project. I will close the public hearing, both of them, special use permit and the site plan. And we'll talk about the special use permit first.
So I'll just read the standard, for you. So waivers to road setback, side rear setback, and structure height. Reduction in these dimension controls may be permitted by special use permit issued by the planning board. The grant of such permit shall require the planning board to find that the proposed use is consistent with the purpose of the district, is suitable for the location proposed, would not cause significant adverse impacts, and the proposed setback and structure height is consistent with the applicable setbacks and or structure height of existing buildings located on adjacent lots.
Okay, so what's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion that we grant the special use permit requested by Walter Cheney Jr. of Cheney Property Management Corporation for property located at 50-56 Exeter Road, tax map U2, lots 11 and 15 with the M2A zone, to waive the structure height back in order to increase the permissible building height to a maximum of 41 feet, based upon meeting the
Prior conditions?
the standards, thank you, as outlined in the planning board granting waivers.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And now for the minor site plan modification.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll entertain a motion for that.
I will make a motion to grant the approval of the minor site plan amendment requested by Walter Cheney Jr. of Cheney Property Management Corporation for property with address of 50-56 Exeter Road, tax map U2, lots 11 and 15 in the M2A zone, to remove the sidewalk at the easterly portion of Exeter Road and to relocate the sidewalk at the westerly section along Exeter Road.
Is there a second?
Second?
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those in case opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations. Good luck. Turn off the air conditioning in the town hall today?
I think it was on.
Try to get us here faster.
It's working. All right, next is pursuant to
Threw a shirt on.
paragraph 24-1, zoning ordinance amendment procedure for the municipal code of the town of Newmarket, New Hampshire, the planning board shall have a discussion and either consider setting a public hearing or make their recommendations to the town council on proposed amendments submitted by the town of Newmarket to paragraph 32-5, nonconformities, paragraph 32-9, special use permits, paragraph 32-11, definitions, paragraph 32-155, wetland protection overlay district, and paragraph 32-234, accessory apartments of the municipal code of Newmarket, New Hampshire, or take any other action relative thereto.
Okay,
So,
folks.
this is based on the ADU, updated ADU regulations that Bart has put forward.
Yes.
So, oh, no, just, so tonight, I guess I would prefer if the board agrees to not get into a lot of detail, specific detail, but general stuff, go through what the general changes are, and then we can decide whether to send it for a public hearing, and then after the public hearing, then we can talk about more details based on the feedback we get and our own thoughts.
I think it's a good approach. Yeah, see, this is kind of the iterative,
Yeah, yeah.
iterative process.
Yep.
So, yes, so here we are, it's our first zoning amendment journey together. So, based on the conversations that town council has been having, and also the planning board for, I would say, a little more than a year, amending the ADU ordinance has been deemed a priority. So basically, right now, the existing conditions for the ADU, or accessory apartments, as they're called right now, is that it's by special exception, and it can only be attached or conversion. Detached is not allowed right now. So what this ordinance proposes to do is to allow for a detached to occur. And it has a lot of different iterations and contexts where it's expanded. The key aspects of it is by a special use permit, 2 ADUs could be allowed. And it also talks about the detached, so if you have existing structures on the lot, those could be converted, even if they're going to be bigger than the house. So we're thinking about carriage houses, we're thinking these older type of buildings that are prevalent in Newmarket. So the idea basically is to allow for flexibility, reuse existing structures, because that does have an impact on a number of different levels, and allow for a little more flexibility on single-family lots. So you're kind of giving property rights back to landowners. You're helping provide the community with housing options, and you're also redirecting the permitting process to the planning board from the ZBA, and also allowing for just one ADU by right, by building permit only. Also, this allows to be allowed on all single-family lots, regardless if they're non-conforming or not. So we have a few, if you look at the map, there's a few areas in town where there are non-conforming lots. In the B zones, in particular, single-family housing is not permitted, but there are pre-existing legally non-conforming lots there. That didn't come out right, but
Which ones are the non-conforming ones?
well, I'll have a different map. But if you look in the B zones, so B3, I think, I don't know, mine might get cut off. But my point is, there are existing legally non-conforming single-family lots in town.
Are you highlighting them in pink up here in the B1
So
zone on North
that
Main?
map just shows all where the single-family lots are located.
Okay.
In certain zones, they're not permitted as of right now. So there is, they do exist. So in different zones where they're not permitted right now. So the idea is to allow those properties, to accommodate accessory dwelling unit. Again, you're trying to provide flexibility in these instances.
So Barton, on the plan, can you just review this map we're looking at that you referenced as far as what's the color
Alright, so
coding?
this map, I'll have many more maps at the public
Okay.
hearing, but this one I just wanted, did it get cut off? Yeah. Okay, so my apologies, it kind of, the intent of this map was to show where all the single-family lots were located and what zones, how many are in each zone. Right now, this map actually got cut off, so I had a chart
Okay,
there.
so I guess the question, so I can just be clear on this, are all the are all the lots colored in black, single family?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Zone single family.
That's all I wanted to know.
No.
No,
those
they are
single
single family.
So
Yeah.
Alright.
the colors
Okay,
are the zones.
alright,
Okay, the black parcels, be nice to have legend, are single-family lots. This is based off assessing records. So this data was taken from the assessor database.
oh, wow, okay. So there's just looking at it and knowing a lot of these properties, it's very incomplete. So we're gonna see a lot more single-family lots.
So in the R1 district, there's almost about, I would say about 45% of single-family lots are down in the R1 district. And then next highest issues would be the R2 district, which is around like 37. So the majority of your single-family lots in town are in the R1, R2 district.
But
So-
just even coming up on North Main, like all of that, pretty much most of that should be blacked, unless you're pulling them out because, are you saying maybe one's a duplex?
Correct.
Okay.
This is only so these,
Alright, and so the same would be over here on the blue section, would be like Washington, Lincoln,
correct.
um,
So, the proposed ordinance will only, if you only have a single-family dwelling unit, you can have an ADU. If you have a duplex, not allowed. So this map is showing where only single-family dwelling units exist.
And these are buildable lots that are not developed yet.
No, some of them are like conservation land. So the other lots just don't qualify. So black is single-family lots. The colors are the zoning districts, and you can see the outline of all the other parcels. Those are everything else in town. So the idea of the map is to show you where these ADUs could actually pop up.
So you're saying you could put an ADU in a place with a septic tank?
Yeah, you have to, there'd be a process to go through, you have to qualify that with the state, to make sure that the lot is big enough to handle
yeah.
the additional lot loading.
You can
So
now.
that
You
would
can now.
outlaw a lot of these places then, right? Because they're not big enough.
Well, it depends.
Depends on their septic design.
Yeah.
Well, I'm assuming that's.
It's more the
review
soils,
process.
it's more the
Yeah.
soils.
Right.
Because New Hampshire, the number of bedrooms you can have on a lot is based on the soils and the size of the lot. So you could have a house, for instance, a 3-bedroom house, and you could have good soils, and if you wanna do an ADU, you have to go to 4 or 5 bedrooms.
Yeah,
You may
4.5.
be able to design for that. If you have bad soils, it may just be, no, you can't do it. So it is soil dependent.
And
Well,
existing septic dependent too, right? Like if my house has a septic system designed for 3 bedrooms, I can't add,
Yes, you
and I
could.
have 3 bedrooms.
You can
You
take
could
away-
add to it, if the soils are good, you could make your septic system bigger, make it,
Yeah,
You
to
can't have an
I'd have to
ADU
modify
unless
the
you
septic system.
have.
That's what I'm trying to get at, that's what I'm trying to get
So you
at.
have to address it.
Yeah,
You might
that's what I'm
have
trying to get
Yeah,
at.
you
You
might
have
have to.
Yeah.
Yep.
to- and so presumably you have to prove it, right?
Yes.
Like-
Oh, it's part of the building
Well,
permit application.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other question, I know, for instance, one street at least, there's covenant, you can't add additional buildings on your lot.
That's a private
it's a
issue.
private issue.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just meant that could affect other properties on this, so when people
Oh, sure.
look at that map, that doesn't necessarily mean that all of those are eligible for ADUs,
Well-
because they may be.
I think it's the potential to have an ADU.
Right.
And-
So-
And you may have a covenant where someone can't have an outbuilding, but you also may have a covenant, so they could do an ADU in their house. But you also may have a covenant where within that subdivision, they do not permit any accessory dwelling units.
Right.
So, yeah, so this is basic, because we don't have control over those covenants.
Right.
And no,
And they can change.
But I think when people see this as far as the public goes, that can cause a lot of confusion for people, I think.
Sure, and I just have to be more clear what the intent of this map
Yeah.
is. This map is just to show where single-family lots of record exist in town.
Single-family lots or single-family houses?
Uses,
Uses, okay.
single-family use.
I think it's a great starting point.
Uh-huh.
So,
I think it's.
yeah, so basically, I'll have a few other maps. One of the ideas is, show over 25 years, there's only been 40 applications for accessory apartments.
Over 40 years?
25 years.
It's been 40.
So,
But that's not to say that that's all that is here.
correct, it could be illegal units, absolutely.
Well, there were so many, they just were grandfathered in.
Yeah.
And then grandfather as well, yeah. So, again, the idea is to, allow for them to exist and have more control and kind of, it's, like I said, it's to find an equilibrium. That's what I'm trying to do. Allow for these to exist, make sure that they're, they meet environmental standards, low impact, there's open space requirements. If they can't meet open space requirements, then they have to meet stormwater requirements. So there's a lot of different standards here that attempt to balance adding more housing options to the town, being mindful of neighbors, and providing natural space and socialization space on the lot.
Are these figures based on the recommended ordinance from?
So, yeah, I can explain.
Yeah.
So, New Hampshire, the RSA's for attached or internal ADUs, a municipality cannot make an applicant build an ADU less than 750 square feet. They can create a range for them to exist. You can say you can build from 300 to 1,000, but you can't force them to build under 750 square feet. For detached, it's discretionary. The town can put any standards they want onto detached.
Or not allow them.
Or not allow
Right,
it.
which is what we have.
Right.
Prohibit them outright, which is currently on the books.
Yeah,
Right.
which is right.
Yeah.
Well, then, to that point though, when you talk about a tiny house,
Mhm.
sometimes they are smaller than that.
But that's
I know.
not an ADU.
It's not classified as an ADU.
A tiny house is gonna sit as the house, as a single family, on a single family lot, that's the primary structure. And someone's just choosing to put a tiny house on that lot.
But I think what she's saying is if you, like, I wanna build a tiny house in my yard.
So you wanna build an ADU.
A tiny ADU.
Less
Yeah.
than 750 square feet.
That's
They're
my
only
point.
like-
So,
They,
they're
you
really-
can elect to do it, we just can't regulate, you have to do it.
Oh, okay, so that's why I just wanted to make sure,
Correct.
so you could,
Yeah.
they could do it, we can't tell them they have to.
Correct, when we updated
Okay.
the zoning last time, I think we had a specific, depending on what it was. In some towns, they try to were preventing ADUs because they were making them be less than 750 square feet in their regulation.
so this proposes a 300, so depending on the situation, there's many different contexts here, but,
You can't limit bedrooms.
you
You
know.
just want to say size, and if they
Exactly.
want to do
By
a
size.
three-bedroom, they can do a
Right.
three-bedroom.
Yeah.
Right. So I encourage to look at the standards for the public hearing and then go through all the different iterations that our proposed ADUs can, be configured as. I just want to really mention that this ordinance also protects against short-term renting. So if a lot, if a single-family lot has an ADU, they can't short-term rental either the primary dwelling unit or the ADU.
Just to clarify, the proposed,
Excuse me,
That you
proposed.
set
The
forth.
proposed that I had, yeah. The proposed language.
No Airbnb.
Correct.
Yeah, it's basically-
Short-term rental,
yeah.
which is like Airbnb, VRBO.
Like I said before, I think it's a great place to start. I think you did a very good job, Bart.
Yeah, I agree, I think it looked good.
If everybody's okay, I think we just set this up, have a public hearing at our next meeting, and get the feedback. Bart, would you?
just, and then so as far as the deliberation by the planning board, do you want us to bring our comments to the full board at the next meeting? Are you looking for us to submit our comments to Bart and he consolidates them? What process would you like to see there?
I think we just bring our comments to the next meeting, hear what the public has to say, hopefully we'll get some good comments, then we can talk about everything. I don't wanna get into a lot of ahead of time changes, I don't wanna assume anything, I don't want the public to think that we're assuming. Let's hear the comments and
Perfect.
go accordingly.
And what I'll do too, is before, I'll give a presentation, so I'll show all these maps and make,
Great.
clarify everything, and just go through the language
Yeah.
and the highlights.
And to, just, I guess for the record too, is that some of the changes like this, the, special use permit, wetlands and all that, that's relative to ADUs, that's why those are proposed changes, just to allow,
Correct.
to accommodate ADUs, we're not
Correct.
making wholesale changes. to
Exactly,
other
so,
sections.
yeah, those other, sections, you're correct, Mr. Chair,
It's consistent with the existing ordinance.
it's,
Yes.
it's in order to make, in order to create, allow for these to exist in different contexts.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Can I ask you just a, maybe information? If I go build a tiny house ADU on my property and I'm in town, right? Do I run the septic into my house, the principal house and then out, or does it go into the street?
You mean sewer or?
Yeah, sewer, yeah.
Sewer, so,
It seems funny to run sewer into your house.
No, I would,
No.
whatever the sewer department requires, but
Right.
I would think that they would require you to tie the two together on your property and have
Right.
one
Oh,
tie into the main.
Right.
Yeah, you wouldn't go into your house.
Yeah.
Some towns would require each unit to have connections, but that gets out of control.
Yeah.
So typically it'd be
And-
two on your lot into one.
Should that be covered, or is that up?
I think that's what the water, sewer department
already
can have
taken
that,
care of.
yeah.
Right, so September, was it 12th, is that right?
So after the public hearing at our next meeting, we would then discuss it at the subsequent meeting?
Yes.
Or that would be?
That's my intention is be to,
So October meeting would be deliberation
yes.
and further public comment.
Yep.
Yep. That's perfectly fine.
That's fabulous. Excellent.
So relative to, helpful maps part, can you provide us with any actual aerials, even if you do them by sections or quadrants of the town, so that we can really view particularly because you're proposing in the, like multiple detached potentially on a lot. If you did some kind of the aerials, it would really show, give us an idea of lot coverages. I-
How,
know
what's
it-
the scale you want? Like, how?
That's what I was thinking, of quadrants or something.
Quadrants,
Something
okay.
that's readable. Or even in the presentation, if you could just put that up, on the screen.
That way you don't have to print them and
Yeah,
you can zoom in and out.
that would be great.
If it's in a GIS format.
I think you said.
Or Google or
Yeah.
KMZ.
And does Stratford Regional have all that? I mean, I'm not
Yeah,
saying
I think
Google
I
Maps
can get-
because you don't get the definition.
I think I can find pretty recent aerials that reflect current conditions. Might be a few years off, but.
Yeah, close enough.
It would be interesting for me to see, I don't know if Stratford Regional Planning Commission has that, because some towns, did that change, let's say 10 years ago. Did they see additional, change, like a lot of applications suddenly came in, opposed to before, like just to see like, what the difference was in that period?
Right, I know, I was watching Portsmouth's meeting, cause they're going through a similar process right now. And I think they only had, from 2017 to current day, I know different scales, but they only had 30 applications.
But in that hearing and the reports on it, one of the big issues and why Portsmouth is revisiting it is the complexity and the cost of somebody trying to do an ADU in Portsmouth.
I would say in general, and that's something that's out of our purview, but the financing of ADUs is very difficult. You either need to have home equity, there's no loan package out there
Yeah.
that will allow you to apply for and build these. You need either a home equity loan or a
Right.
construction loan.
But relative to the revisiting of the regulations and the minimal amount that have of permits issued, the core of their premise is that their regulations were so, onerous and expensive. You're hiring engineers to be able to apply for an ADU. The reason being to revisit, you know, I mean, this is all public information, is to try to make that process for property owners just, you know, less costly and less onerous.
Yeah, I know in California, they actually have standard plans, and if you pick one of the standard plans, that it's automatically approved.
So that's kind of what we're trying to avoid, is something, well, Portsmouth's going through right now. We want to make, well, at least, not me, what I'm proposing is allowing for, in different contexts, because there's so many different variables, to allow for ADUs to exist. You know, if it's within a home, if it's with an existing structure, if it's a new structure. You know, at least one by right, and then the whole question on two is, you know, that's for subject to debate. But again, just another option, because, yeah.
But to expand what is currently allowed in town, I think is the premise of revisiting this. And with
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we have ADUs, we have a regulation for ADUs. Just even expanding it to a detached so that someone doesn't have to go get a variance for that. Right, could be, you know, in and of itself, the, you know, a basis for adding the availability of more smaller housing in town. Or giving the advantage for individual property owners to move out of a big house on the same property into a smaller house,
Well, and
which
to
they don't
create
have now
diversity in the town.
in the housing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Housing options for
Yeah.
different people
think-
in different stages of their life.
Yeah,
So that the principal home of the landowner can be the
either one,
ADU.
it can,
Yep.
correct, it can now as well.
Yeah, that's correct.
Or-
So I just want to go over
Well,
the
somebody
part-
who's
yeah.
retiring, for instance, right, and so they want to downsize.
I understand.
So I just want to go over the purpose. You know, this is that purpose I outlined for this ordinance proposal is to maintain a diverse housing, a diverse supply of housing options, to provide flexible, adequate, and affordable living accommodations, to support homeowners utilizing excess space to offset the cost of home ownership, to foster the town's community fabric by establishing space for multi-generational living, and to promote the conservation of energy and land by the reuse of structures and the preservation of properties. So, you know,
Well said.
that right there is what we're trying to achieve, you know, and then everything else, the details, which we're going to all go into, so.
I'm just happy, I mean, this has been kicking around forever. I'm glad that finally,
Do you know in other towns where most of these that are being built or where the permits are, where they principally are? Are they in the downtownish area or are they scattered?
They're scattered,
In Newmarket?
you know,
no, other
in
towns,
general.
Oh.
Anywhere in
other
general?
towns.
No, it means where in towns that have detached ADUs? Are they
I
in
don't think
city
there's any right
centers
now,
or?
There isn't,
And there's so,
yeah.
A lot
every
of towns
town,
don't allow detached ADUs.
Yeah.
it's hard to answer that question because each town regulates it differently. So it's hard to say, you know, where do they, you know, where do they end up being built?
We're actually beginning to do more of this. There's getting to be a lot of places, well, you know, Hampton Falls, Hampton, we're beginning to do a lot of people looking to do ADUs.
Yeah.
Are there
Because
impact fees?
There are.
If the number of bedrooms expand, there are. That's in the current impact fee ordinance. So for instance, do they offset the primary dwelling yet?
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
just saying, like, say a neighborhood gets a whole bunch more, you know, I don't know, a third more bedrooms in their own town sewer.
Yeah, there'll be impact fees, and they still have to pay water and sewer anyways.
Yeah,
Uh,
but yeah.
But I think that was the discussion with Sean, you know, when they really do their system development charges, you know, they weren't accounting for
Right.
ADUs.
See, in New Hampshire though, it's interesting because if you have, say, a 4-bedroom house, and it turns out that your lot is only big enough to have a 4-bedroom house, you can't convert your house to a 3-bedroom house and then do a 1-bedroom ADU because the state considers that a bedroom and a half
Right.
for septic design.
If it's not water and
It's
sewer.
not one
yeah.
for one, so
Right.
Yep.
it can get complicated. But
So
Right.
when the committee then, when we did all this research with all the outlying towns, you know, 2 times before, not the last update, but the one before, to Bart's point, or someone made the point, it's about a 50-50 mix in the communities within the seacoast as to who allows detached versus attached only at that time. But it was clear that there was no concise, say, statistic that said, oh, well, they're mostly in a downtown area, or, meaning like it's mostly urban infill, because it wasn't. And I definitely know the Durham market, there's a lot of ADUs, for many properties, like out on Bay Road or, Durham Point Road, that area. And owners are using those to offset the costs or, of taxes and just maintenance of the properties.
And the only other community that allows 2 ADUs is Dover. But they have a condition that it has to be affordable housing.
And that could be within a single or 2 structures?
It can be in detached or
Two
inside.
Yeah.
detached, so
Two
there could be
Dover.
3 structures or
Right.
2 structures.
Correct. And the proposed ordinance before you doesn't allow.
That's only in certain zones in Dover, correct?
I have to check that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But this ordinance amendment, you can't have both. If it's a detached structure, you can't have both in there. So you can't have both ADUs in a detached structure.
So you can't have a
You can't
duplex
have an
ADU.
ADU duplex, exactly.
Well, I was
Exactly.
thinking
It's
about
another
that.
acronym.
But the ordinance does allow for internals. So if it's within the primary dwelling unit, you can have 2 ADUs in there. But each ADU has there's proposed to be a primary and secondary, and the secondary cannot be as large as the primary. So you're kind of scaling down there.
creative.
I asked him, sorry. I thought about this a ton. The unit that's the ADU, and looking at the square footage stuff, what does that include? Does it include like where the mechanical stuff is, or is it like just the living space, or is it?
So we're adding a definition.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Gross floor area. So gross floor area means the floor area within the perimeter of the exterior walls. This is how area is being calculated. The exterior walls of the building without deductions for corridors, stairways, ramps, closets, thickness of interior walls, columns, or other features. Gross floor area is calculated by taking into account all stories of the building, exclusive of basements and attic spaces. So this has gone through the code enforcement officer. We've worked on these type of code issues together and what makes sense for him to regulate and how to calculate. We took that into account to make sure that if this were to be adopted, it can be implemented correctly and easily.
Because the state doesn't define it, correct?
Correct.
They only say 750 square feet.
Minimum. For
Yeah, but they don't say gross living area.
Correct. The municipality can regulate that, calculate that.
So, and I think your proposal was gross living area or gross?
Gross floor area.
Floor area.
Yeah. That's what it is intended to be if it's
Which would account for utility storage, etc.
Unless it's in the basement.
correct.
Yeah.
Well, under the proposed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Does anybody have anything else? All right, so Bart, next, I think it's
It's the 12th to
Say it's the
13th.
12th?
13th, yeah.
13th. Excellent. All right.
What's
Now,
that?
Deliberation on the 11th.
Yes. Yeah, so just setting the public hearing for it.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And September 13th is the primary election day.
Is it? Oh.
Did you put together this whole thing, or is that something that?
I did that.
You did this whole
Yeah.
thing? Huh.
all right, moving on. Pursuant to RSA 675:7, the planning board shall set a public hearing to amend both the site plan and subdivision regulations of the town of Newmarket, New Hampshire, intended to modify section 2.06 fees of appendix A, subdivision, and section 2.05 fees of appendix B, site plan review, or take any other action relative to. Bart, could you just walk us through
Yeah.
the proposed changes?
Yeah, basically, it's, the main purpose of this is to increase the public noticing fees because it's not enough for today's market. So it's from $75 to $250 that the applicant will have to pay for noticing.
So, I'm sorry, how much?
From 75 to 250.
Okay.
So the intention is to pay for the town's cost of the
Correct.
hours that people take to compile stuff.
That and then the actual money it takes to put it into the paper.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, Val, go ahead.
I'm just looking at so the last time this was amended was 2011?
Yep.
Under section 206. 205 was last amended
2003.
2003. I think it's important to realize that these cost allocations at the time were obviously to be addressing the cost of plan reviews at that time by staff, or staff time in dealing with this. I'm pretty sure, based on what we're all paying on taxes, that the salaries of the staff have significantly changed from '03 to 2011. And should we be taking that into account as far as looking at all the fee changes? And then how do these fee changes actually compare with other similar towns?
So if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly,
got it.
we're gonna do the whole thing set in public notice. So I'll do an analysis of what other towns are doing.
I think it's important if we're saying 20 years ago.
Sure. I can, so I'll put together a spreadsheet, comparing, what other municipalities are doing in the area. And then, the board can, adjust accordingly or make recommendations.
I'm fine at this point to make a motion to adopt the proposed changes to the public notice from $75 to $250.
Yes, public hearing first.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you have to put this on? Wait, aren't these our regulations?
yeah, but state statute says you have a public hearing
Oh, for site plan and subdivision regulations.
when you amend the regulations.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's a good time to add
Yeah.
any other action relative there too, so. we
That would be
have
great, if
right
you could
then.
do it before September.
Exactly.
Right.
So, so I can have that ready and proposed language as well. And so just set in the public hearing. And then, so in conjunction with this effort, with the planning department's also looking at building permit fees and proposing amendments. And that's the town council resolution that has to take place. So that'll be coming in the pipeline as well. Building permit fees.
So for
Fees.
September
Fees.
13th again?
Yes, please.
Schedule that for
Great.
public hearing September 13th. All right, thank you. I think that was great work on both of those, Bart. Thank you.
Thanks.
Um,
I'll have prettier maps next time too.
New old business. Priority list update.
We already work on that. I just want to give an update on the M2, the zoning, other zoning effort that the board will be working on. We're thinking about planning for some of that money, New Hampshire Invest money to help us with that effort. That money would go through facilitation as well as design and writing of that ordinance. So,
This is the Invest New Hampshire?
correct, yeah.
Oh.
So we're gonna look into that process, and I think we would have a competitive application. I think exactly what the intention was is for this type of process, and we kind of already, the town has already agreed upon this is a priority, so I don't think it would take that much effort to submit an application and have support around that. So,
They got $100 million, so we should try to get
that's
some.
right. So the grant's up to $100,000, so I think it'd be excellent opportunity for the town to take advantage of that,
Yeah.
because this is gonna be a significant effort, so.
Any committee reports?
Well, I was gonna say, I didn't get on the energy committee because Environment and Energy, they had a lot of people already lined up. So, my suggestion would be that we create a subcommittee working group, whatever we're gonna call it, to write a draft for a proposed amendment to our master plan that would include an energy plan, which is what other towns are doing across the state right now. Some have already done it, but, it's coming. It's something that everyone's looking at, so I would think we should get started on that sooner than later.
Yeah, so I think the board should have that discussion and add a new chapter, to that event. So my understanding is the energy committee is looking for a master plan chapter, and that's under the purview exclusively of the planning board. So, I think the board, I agree, Patrick, that ultimately we should have one, but, you know, CIP process is coming up. You know, is it worthwhile to plan for that? And is that a chapter that the board wants to focus on this year?
Well, we've been talking for months about there's so many chapters that do we wanna remove them from the master plan, cause they're just so outdated and maybe we don't want to be revisiting them. And then what's the priority list of a lot of chapters that are already outdated that need to be updated? So I think the discussion should be more of a general discussion as to the existing chapters and then the addition of new chapters and prioritize that.
That, and we can also budget for it. So, this is the opportunity to do that right now.
Is the energy committee thinking they're gonna give us something, submit a whole chapter to us, or?
Well, I kind of agree with what Val said, I think the last meeting, that this is our area, we
Yeah.
control the
Oh,
master
absolutely.
plan, and it should be, you know, other planning boards and other towns have tackled this. I'm sure they'd love to give us input about what they think should be in it, I know they would. But I do think that we should hold on to that, that's something important that we should be invested in doing. The reason I think it's coming up more, it's a pressing one, is because there's a lot of activity right now on the energy front with the town, with the Community Power Coalition, and looking like there could be federal money coming for energy alternatives too. So it's a big change that I think's coming quickly now that's gonna affect every town. You gotta have an energy plan, basically.
There was a discussion in the town council to change the energy committee to add a representative from the planning board and from the conservation commission. And I think that's gonna be discussed in the next town council meeting.
Which was your
So that may-
recommendation.
That may solve that issue.
Might get you on there.
Yeah, we might, but I think the bigger priority actually is the master plan portion of that, because that's really the guiding document. You know, the Environment and Energy Committee is really just giving suggestions and ideas back to the town council, and so the real work of this, I think, is gonna come to us as far as what we wanna do as a town when it comes to energy.
So, I mean, I think, Bart, we should probably, at the next meeting, maybe if you could, I'm just thinking out loud here, give us a list of the, you know, the master plan chapters, what's updated, we can talk about which ones we think are outdated and maybe ought to be eliminated, those that are old and need to be updated, and new chapters that may happen. And I wonder if there's, like if Stratford Regional, if they have, any other towns have just done a similar chapter.
What I'll do is find the list. So the board has examples to look at.
Yeah.
Well, and probably part of that discussion would be, I can't remember how much money is in the account for master plan
It's like
update.
60 grand in there.
Right,
Yeah.
with the idea then 2025, was it? That there would be a complete rewrite of the entire master plan.
Yep.
Now, part of that, the first phase of that is the visioning. And then I think the discussion, maybe by the board, is, do we want a complete rewrite of our entire master plan? That's every chapter. You know, or do we wanna use some of that money to fund updating of certain chapters or creation of new chapters?
But I think it's healthy to look at chapters existing and reevaluate.
Yeah.
And then that, then prioritize full rewrite, chapter by chapter. So I think that's great. I can do that.
What's the definition of energy? As we kind of look at this, right? What is that? What does that mean?
Well, I mean, you can go out there and look at different towns, what they've done, some towns, and a lot of it is involved with what is the energy future going to be, you know, for, at the town level where there's an opportunity for more energy to actually be created in the town through some of the renewable energy options that are becoming more and more available? And how do you sort of build that into your infrastructure in your town, right? So if you go from a town that mostly imports its energy from other sources to a town that's actually producing energy, you need to, you know, start to think about that, and it affects land use, it affects,
That's my point.
yeah, it's a different topic really, right? It's
Yeah.
more about technology today than it is about,
100%. I just want to make sure that, you know, as we talk about it, it's more about the energy. But the other thing that's real important to consider with that is, at least for the next 24 months, anything that has to do with energy associated with IT is going to be delayed by 36 months, if not more, right? So we could sit there and say, I'm going to put a gazillion alternative energy things right over there in that corner, and that looks great, and it sounds like we're doing the right thing, but the smart technology of it, you can't get. You know, so as we look at this, I think that should be a very key element to understand. We need to look under the covers to understand what's going to happen with that, and I think that's real important. I buy IT every day, and I can't get a router or a switch for 365 days, and that's
So you're saying, what's the reality of implementation of these,
exactly.
you know, proposed?
Well, that needs to be considered,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, but I think we need to understand what is the ramifications of it. You know, let's go do that. Okay, what does that mean? Well, what does that alternative energy really mean?
This is the big disconnect between the Historical Energy Committee and the town council. That the town council says, this is great, what's the plan? And the Energy Committee has been historically saying, well, we just want to go there, right? And, you know, and what you're saying is, you know, if you don't have a plan to succeed, you got a plan to fail. And
100%. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
just understanding the underlying elements to a solution is vital, especially today, right? And we just want to make sure that you can do that. That's why when we talk about energy, I'd love to maybe sit with the energy group and just say, talk to me, well, what does that really mean to you? Because I really do think that that's important.
I think another key is conservation of energy.
100%.
You know, what we do, like,
John's doing a good job tonight, there's no air conditioning.
I know, I thought it was just me with the hot flash.
That wasn't just to make the meeting shorter?
I'm just saying like urban heat, you know, or pavements, you know. So like, how can we reduce that? More street trees, you know. There's, you know, a bunch
yeah,
of
it's more than just solar. So.
exactly.
100%.
So sounds like
Excellent.
a master plan is needed.
But if there is a subcommittee or whatever, I'd love to participate.
Let's talk at the next meeting, we'll go through the chapters and we'll
Yeah.
figure that out,
Yeah,
get something, get it rolling.
Sounds good.
Does anybody have anything else they want to add?
I just want to do, I know it's hot, so that the Wildcat Transit, which is the UNH shuttle bus, right, a year ago said to us, look, the ridership is really declining, we're going to look at it for the next year, and if it doesn't start picking up, we're going to terminate it. So we just got a notice from them that over the last year, it's gone down even more than it was. And so in spring, the spring academic year of 2023, after that, there will be no more bus service. They're terminating it.
We still get Coast Bus.
Yeah, but even that seems to be
Yeah.
tentative, yeah. So we've hired a new town engineer, Lindsay Butler. She's currently the town engineer for Salem, but she lives near here, so she's joining us. She's actually worked on several projects. She used to work for...
Right, Pierce.
Right, yeah, Pierce, and so she's actually done projects in Newmarket. We approved a contract to repair the library roof. The library's been leaking. And we approved a resolution that said that we'd like to go to fossil-free sometime in the future. You know, so that's a direction, right? And then something I just thought you guys kind of would be interested in, given this thing. So we have a Tucker well, and to get to Tucker well, you have to drive over a culvert, you know, a driveway of somebody, right? And so we were trying to put a new generator in there as a backup generator. And so we said to the guy that owns the property, look, we'll go in, you know, we want to drive over this road. And I'll tell you what, we'll go in, we'll put a new culvert, we'll put a new driveway and everything in it, right? And the guy says, the only way you're going to be in here is you have to buy my whole property. It's $300,000, right? And
That's not an old story.
That's, yeah, no old story. It's not like you're doing things all under conservation.
So we said, okay, I'll tell you what, we'll give you $25,000, you know, and we could drive over your driveway, right? No, you got to go buy my whole property. So we went out and got an independent auditor. The independent auditor looked at it and said $3,000, right? And so he said, I'm taking you to court. So he takes us to court, and we finally settled. This is like an 18-month process, right? So we finally settled for $20,000. And so now we can drive over the culvert.
And the lawyers made a fortune.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the overframe.
What?
That's not for the whole property.
No, it's just to drive
Just
over
to drive, just the right
Yeah.
to
I
drive
think the
over.
town had 40,000 on the table too.
Uh-huh.
We turned that down.
Probably
I
we would
remember
probably
that.
take 40,000 in attorney
Been
fees too.
going on.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Scott, anybody else have anything else?
Nope, that's it.
I'll entertain the motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Anybody want to talk about what we should adjourn about? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.